Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Mysteries and Oddities video. Well, I thought I would mix this one in here while I'm continuing to do your cryptids and monster suggestions. This is because this was actually an entry, something that was suggested on the urban legend side, but when I was reviewing the information, I realized no, this actually falls more under my Mysteries and Oddities playlist. And that's because to this very day, almost 20 years later, there is still so much mystery tied to this cargo plane. Like, what happened to it? That fateful night when it went down, what caused it to go down is the main mystery. There's some clues, there's some indications here and there. More on that here in a minute, but nothing, no smoking gun as to what points to it 100% solidified. It's still open up to debate as to what caused this fateful night for this cargo plane. I think you're looking at a picture of it now, and I'll show some other pictures afterward as to the wreckage. But let's talk about this. It's essentially the mystery associated with Night Ship 282. So let's go ahead and let's share that info here, and then I'd love to hear what your own comments are on it afterward. So here's essentially what happens. On a fateful night of October 23rd, 2002, that's when this cargo plane, which was codenamed Night Ship 282, ended up going down. And when that happened, it crashed in an area called the Big Batu Bay. Some of you that are by that area there, please let me know exactly what that place is like. Maybe you might even be able to give some clues as to what's around it, because that could indicate or help point to what happened to this cargo plane. So it was being piloted by a guy by the name of Thomas Prejos. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Thomas Prejos. He was 54 years old at the time. He was someone that was already a retired police officer, and he was an avid, lifelong airplane fan. So in other words, he was someone that was flying planes for pretty much his entire life. By that point, being retired, he had taken up another job, and this was flying nightly cargo. It looks like from Mobile, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama, and then also Atlanta, Georgia. I've actually heard about these planes, the ones that involve these nightly cargoes. A lot of people don't realize it, but there's a lot of mail that's shipped that way. There's mail that goes obviously by UPS trucks, by FedEx trucks, by 18-wheelers, by train, and in some cases the large 737s, the ones that you fly from coast to coast. But a lot of the other ones involve these small planes that just do these quick hops to one another, and then they'll be able to fulfill many of the nightly shipments or weekly shipments, and that's essentially what Prejos was doing in this case. And on that night as well, he was carrying about 420 pounds of cargo, all of it being apparently baseball hats. I point that out because there were theories that maybe what caused a specific impact in and around the plane itself, especially with regards to red streaks, as they were called. People were saying it may be tied to the cargo, but no, there's no indication that any of the cargo had that specific characteristics. But here's what happened, and here's why there's so much mystery associated with it. So when he left that night to be able to fly up with the cargo, that's when he was following instructions from some of the air controllers, and they had told him at a certain point, this was when he was flying his plane more north, they instructed him to climb to 3,000 feet, turn right, and that way he was heading towards the east side. And in fact, they had told him this because there was another aircraft, a DC-10 aircraft, that was flying south, so in other words going opposite of him, straight on towards him, but they were at 4,000 feet. And so 3,000 feet, 4,000 feet, that's a lot of feet in between, right? And even then, this poor guy, Thomas Prejos, he even noted that, stated that, yes, Roger, I have him right above me right now. So in other words, he saw the plane in of itself. Maybe he saw the telltale signs associated with planes, like the blinking lights and so on. And that's when he realized that, yes, everything is good. He's in the clear. But what started to happen next is what caused so much mystery. At a certain point, that's when his plane started to do a rapid controlled descent. So it wasn't out of control, like he wasn't careening towards the ground itself. Instead, it was more of a purposeful controlled descent. I don't know how fast it was, but at least if you gauge this, it took about 14 seconds, but the plane went from 3,000 feet to 2,900 feet to 2,400 feet. All of that happening again within that short time period. That's probably 14 seconds went by just now, like me pretty much describing that. That's how quickly it was going down. But key thing was it was a purposeful controlled descent. But what adds further mystery was this. He was also talking and stating things over the radio and then talking to the controllers. And then that's when he stated these fateful last words. He said, I needed to deviate, I needed to deviate, I needed to deviate, I needed, and then it stopped. That's when the actual message stopped, and then that's when his plane careened. It took a nosedive, and then it went straight down into the swamp. And then when that happened, obviously there was a huge investigation to try to find out what occurred. The actual cargo plane itself was completely destroyed. Like, it was just spread out over 200 yards in all directions, which is obviously what's going to happen when you have a plane like this careening at the last moment straight into the ground. They found the instruments for the plane, but there was nothing indicating what happened because they were so smashed up. His body was found as well, but there were no indications on an autopsy that he had any alcohol or drugs within him. But what leads to the next mystery is this. Apparently the plane itself had these red marks around the front of the plane. In fact, they were concentrated towards the very front of the plane, right on the pilot's side. And they were also found on the other side of the plane, but they were primarily on the front part. And then on top of that, these reddish marks were also found in the nose landing gear wheel. And then when that happened, the next mystery thing was this. The plane's engine was found, but it was also broken into two main pieces. In fact, the way it was analyzed, and I'm scratching my head even at this too, was this. The way it was found was it's almost as if something hit the plane right by the engine, causing the engine to split in two, but nothing else really. Like, no other real part of the plane itself had this impact with whatever it was that hit the front of the engine. That thing, whatever it was, hit the engine, split it in two, and then went away. And then the rest of the plane obviously was going to go down at that point, but the wreckage itself didn't point to anything else really being bad for the plane. Of course, it was spread out over 200 yards. But that's part of a different impact. In this case, the ground impact, not essentially exactly what had hit the plane in of itself. So that's where the mystery comes from. What was it? What was this thing that caused this guy, this professional pilot, someone that was, again, a lifelong pilot as well, someone who easily did this on a nightly basis after retirement, doing this at night, of course. You can imagine something like that. There's hardly any visibility, and so he was a pro to be able to do something like this. And he was obviously recognizing that there was already another plane away, but it was 1,000 feet above, and it was to the point where, yeah, he was in control of things, but something else changed. Something caused this pilot to essentially change in 14 seconds, almost 1,000 feet, and then him saying those eerie words at the end. I needed to deviate, I needed to deviate, and then he kept saying it until the message cut, and then whatever those reddish marks are the only indication. So theories have been abound as to what this could have been. There's the more, I guess, realistic theory that they could have been a drug runner's plane. Like, in other words, a hidden plane, hidden in the sense that there was no, what do they call them, transponders, is that right? Nothing that shows that there was something up there unless you visually saw it. Maybe this could have hit the plane itself, but one would think that this would have been a much bigger impact, right? Or it could have been a meteor or some other type of space item, like, in other words, debris from outer space, either man-made or otherwise, that was coming down. And then when that happened, he saw it, but he guessed wrong. Like, in other words, instead of turning in the right direction, he turned right into it. Or there's this other theory that it could have been military drones or even a missile in of itself. But again, no one knows 100% what happened that night. The only person that saw it was obviously him, and he was no longer alive to be able to give any advice associated with it. But that's pretty much it. That's the mystery with regards to Night Ship 282. And again, the unfortunate death of Thomas J. Prezos afterward. But if anybody has any more info, anything else I might have missed, then please post those comments below. What about those of you, again, in that area? Big Batu Bay, is there a lot of mystery associated with that area? UFOs even? Who knows? I'd love to hear what your comments are with regards to that too. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.